After spending some time in Saint Denis, John wanted to get away. He'd been in the city for a while now and wanted to return to a simple life. He thought what better idea than to take a camping trip up north to go fishing. Before leaving on his trip though, John had to prepare. He headed to the nearby general store to stock up on goods for the trip. John also bought some canned food for an easy meal if he needed it. He also bought a lake fishing lure that he would use on his trip. After stocking up, he was ready to leave the city. He had a couple of stops he was going to make on his way up north. His first stop led him deep into the swamp. He'd be heading to one of the best underground fishing stores in the country. He was now in Le Gras. This was a settlement deep in the bayou. As he approached the bait shop, he hoped he would find something good. Unfortunately, he had already purchased the lake lure, so the only other one that would be worth his time was the river lure, just in case. He put the lure on his pole just to see how everything looked together, and then it was time to start the long journey ahead. This was going to be a 2-day horseback trip, so he had a town in mind that he would stop in for tonight. The nature and scenery around him slowly started to change as he made his way on his journey. He made sure to stop and care for his horse along the way, making sure he was feeling good. As the day went on, the sun started to go down as well. Just like that, John was almost at his second stop already. He would be stopping at Valentine and then camping around here for the night. John wouldn't be staying here very long, but he did have an idea. He'd always loved the saloon here, so of course he would be heading in. After traveling on his horse all day, it was nice to finally do something different and just relax. He had a couple beers at the bar, and by that time the sun was starting to set. He decided he would leave and go set up camp for the night. Valentine was always one of his favorite towns to visit, so he was glad he stopped. He wanted to set up camp at high ground, so he climbed up this mountain. At the top, he ended up finding a pretty good clearing that he could use as a campground. First thing, he made a fire, then put up his tent. He was pretty tired out from a day of traveling, so he decided to head to bed right away. It was now the morning, so John got up. He was happy to be away from the city. He had some of his canned food for breakfast, then chilled out by the fire for a tiny bit. He couldn't linger for too long though, because he wanted to get to his spot and also fish today. The ride wasn't too much further today, so he was excited to get going. He was heading to what he heard was a great fishing lake. If he caught any fish, he was for sure going to eat them too. This portion of the ride involved climbing up a pretty big mountain. Coming down the other side of the mountain, John hoped to see the lake soon. He was now nearly there and could almost see the water. And just like that, he got his first glimpse of the lake. He decided to go take a look at the lake a little bit closer. As John climbed up this rock, he saw an amazing scene. This lake was named O'Creagh's Run. John was super happy he made it, and he was excited to get the day started. First things first, John needed to find a good spot for his campsite. Well looking, he found another guy camping on the lake as well. He used his binoculars to check out his spot and see how it looked. Then he scanned the rest of the shoreline to see if he could find a good flat spot by the lake. Well looking, he found a perfect spot and decided to head to it. On his way to the spot, he passed by a cabin, and just like that, he had found a perfect flat spot by the water for his campsite. After examining the spot, he decided this was perfect and he was going to set up here. First, he got a fire going, and then he put up the tent. He now had his full campsite set up. He was ready to check out his potential fishing spots. Just a couple feet away, he noticed a perfect spot, and he already saw some fish in the water. He decided he was going to fish here first. He got his fishing pole out and was ready to get some casts going. As he got closer to the water, he could not wait to throw his new lure in. He made his very first cast of the trip. He was a little rusty. That was a terrible one. He reeled it back in and went for round 2, which ended up being a lot further and a perfect cast. It happened to be right over some fish, so he reeled this in, hoping for a bite. After only a couple seconds, he noticed a bite and hooked the fish. It was fish on. He now had to fight the fish and reel it in. This was only his second cast, and he already had something on the other end of his line. He knew this was going to be a golden fishing spot. Not to mention, this felt like a massive fish. It was not easy to reel in at all, and it had a ton of energy. As he continued to fight the fish and reel it in, it got closer and closer. The fish had one last fight in him though. He kept going. Eventually, the fish ran out of strength, and John reeled it in. He did it. He caught his first fish of the day, and it was nothing small. This was a 14-ounce sockeye salmon, perfect for eating. John kept the fish to cook and eat later. He was not done at all though, and threw in another cast. As he reeled this one in though, he didn't end up getting any bites. That's okay though, he told himself he's not going to get a bite every cast. He sent in another one hoping for better luck, and this time he received it as he hooked another fish right away. This one was definitely a little bit smaller as it was much easier to reel in. It barely put up any fight until the very end and got a last second burst of energy. John ended up reeling it in though shortly after that. This was a 5-pound sockeye salmon, a little bit smaller, and he already had one, so he threw it back. He noticed what looked like a muskie close to shore, so he was determined to catch one of those today. John took another cast, hoping to catch a muskie here. Once again, only a couple seconds later, he ended up hooking a fish, and this one felt massive. He could tell right away that this fish was going to put up a massive fight. Every time he'd get a little ground on the fish by reeling it in, it'd just go crazy again and have a ton of strength, reeling back out the line. John quickly realized this was going to take a while. He was determined though, he was going to catch this fish, no matter what it took. No matter how close John got the fish to shore, it would just end up having another burst of strength. Time after time, he'd get get so close yet so far because it would just go out again. This attempt, he was mere inches from getting the fish on shore, yet it had more strength and pulled out more line. John was starting to get super tired and almost wanted to give up here. It was these moments where the fish almost got to shore that he got the most angry. After many minutes of fighting this fish, John finally had the advantage and he ended up getting this onto shore. He had just caught a muskie, the fish he was hoping to catch, and this was a massive one. He couldn't believe his eyes. He had just reeled in a 19-pound muskie. This was by far his largest fish of the day and also largest of all time. He contemplated putting it back, but he decided to eat it ultimately because he'd never tried muskie before. He brought the fish straight back to camp and decided to cook it up and eat it right away. Muskie was supposedly a flaky type of meat, so he was excited to try it. It ended up tasting not too bad and he was pretty hungry, so he decided to have some more. After his lunch though, he knew he wanted to get back to fishing soon and catch some more species. This time he decided to try a slightly different spot. Also, he changed up his bait to some cheese to hopefully catch some new species. Making his first cast, he could see some fish out there again. He knew he was in a good spot. On his very first cast with the cheese, he ended up hooking a fish right away. This one was super easy to reel in compared to the last fish. It only took a couple of seconds. This was a 1-pound chain pickerel. He thought it looked a lot like a pike because apparently it is in the pike family. Since it was so small, he threw it back. He put cheese on his line again and opted for another cast. This time he decided to just let the cheese sit there and waited for a fish to come bite. Eventually one took the offer and now he had a fish on his line. This one felt a little bit bigger than the last one. Still, it was not very hard to reel in. This was a 1-pound rock bass, a new species for the day. Of course, John decided to throw it back in the water. After that fish, he walked back to camp and decided to take a little break from fishing to sit by the fire. After his little chill break, he decided to look a little bit more around the campsite. He ended up finding and picking this burdock root. After that, he decided to wade in the water a little bit. It was amazing how clear and fresh this water looked. He ended up walking on the sandbar type thing in the water, and then stood on this miniature almost island type feature. He decided this was the perfect spot to actually try some fishing. He was in the water already, so he'd be able to cast further into the lake. This time, he put worms on his line, so he let it sit there and waited for his bobber to go down. After a couple minutes waiting though, nothing bit, so he decided to try casting in a different direction. It seemed like no matter what he was doing, nothing wanted to bite the worms. So he tried one more cast in yet a different direction. Once again, just waiting, trying to get the worm to move a little bit. The sun was starting to set and the lake was getting super foggy. John patiently kept waiting though, and he was lucky he did because eventually he had another fish on his line. Patience was key for this last fish, and he's glad he ended up waiting. Even though this was a small pickerel again, he was glad he caught one last fish of the day. John walked out of the water and back to camp, where he was ready to cook that salmon he caught for dinner. He was happy he saved this for dinner because he liked it way more than the muskie. After dinner, he just sat by the fire, just happy to be back in nature. He ended up catching a lot of fish today. He was very happy. The lake looked awesome as the sun started to set, a vibrant red. John left his campsite to go take a look at it. As he stood on top of this rock, he realized this was exactly the type of trip he needed. The sun was nearly almost set now as he walked back to camp. As he sat down one last time, he realized he was tired and went to bed. John woke up the next morning feeling great. For breakfast, he had his bread roll he bought, and just like that, it was time to take down the camp. He had a long ride home, so there was no time to waste. As he finished packing up completely, he hopped on his horse. He said goodbye to his spot, and thought to himself that he'd definitely be back here at some point. John started riding, happy with the thought he had a successful trip. This was exactly what he needed to get away from the big city. As he started his trip back, he couldn't wait to find out what his next adventure would be.